Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Last week, House Democrats delivered a decisive victory for the American people by passing legislation to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits by 3 years and protecting the health care of tens of millions of Americans who otherwise might experience dramatically increased health insurance premiums. The bill passed by the House is now over in the Senate. It's a bill that was passed on a bipartisan basis, every single House Democrat joined by 17 House Republicans. The only path forward at this moment is for Senate Republicans to do the right thing by the American people and pass the damn bill that we sent over to you. There's no reason to do anything other than that. The health care of tens of millions of Americans is otherwise at risk. We're talking about working class Americans, middle class Americans, and everyday Americans who deserve the same level of certainty that Senate Republicans provided to their billionaire donors when they passed massive tax breaks for the wealthy, the well-off, and the well-connected as part of their one big ugly bill last July. Yet working class Americans, middle class Americans, and everyday Americans have been forced to wait month after month after month. Enough with the partisanship. Enough with the gamesmanship. Enough with the foolishness. At this point in time, pass the bill that we know currently in the Senate has majority support. Every single Senate Democrat and at least 4 Senate Republicans who've previously supported a 3-year extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits. From the very beginning of this fight, Democrats have made our position clear. Cancel the cuts, lower the costs, save health care. Beginning with a 3-year extension of the Affordable Care Act tax credits. We've never wavered from that position. And against all odds, we've passed the bill on a bipartisan basis. It's now over in the Senate. Because Democrats are actually committed to saving health care and lowering the high cost of living for everyday Americans. That's who we fight for. Every day, every week, every month, year after year. And we're in this fight until we win this fight for the American people. Any questions?
Good afternoon. We're hearing some talk from some conservatives that they want to put out their own affordability agenda, try to do something through reconciliation. What do you make of that as they try to move on that in an election year?
These people are pathetic. Republicans have had all year, literally, right, last year, an entire year, pretty much, since Donald Trump was first inaugurated. Now, they claimed throughout 2024, Republicans did, that their top priority was going to be to lower the high cost of living. In fact, Donald Trump lied to the American people and said that costs would go down on day one. Costs haven't gone down in the United States of America. Costs are out of control. And it's strange to me, after Republicans got crushed electorally all across the country, up and down the ballot, in the off-year election last November, that now they've decided that perhaps they should actually try to keep their word and address the high cost of living in the United States of America. It's all talk. There's no action. These people are not serious because in the very beginning of this Congress, in my first remarks to the House of Representatives, we made clear as Democrats, we will work with anyone in the Capitol or who's part of the incoming administration at the time to address the quality of life issues, beginning the high cost of living challenges confronting the American people. And Republicans took the approach, my way or the highway. And now they find themselves in a very challenging position. These extremists must have thought that Democrats were just going to collapse and believe their hype, that they were going to steamroll the country. And now they're falling apart all throughout America. So no, I don't think they're serious. Because if they're serious, the only path forward is to have a conversation with House Democrats and Senate Democrats. That's it. There is no other path. These extremists don't have the votes to get a reconciliation bill done. They barely got a reconciliation bill, the one big ugly bill, through the Congress 6 months ago when they thought they were riding high, even though they had been wiped out in Wisconsin, as a sign that this whole Republican thing was falling apart. It was a joke that it was ever a big mandate when it was the narrowest majority that any party has ever had in the House of Representatives since 1930. And yet Mike Johnson and others wanted to spin a lot of folks in this town as if there was some big mandate. But now it's clear. The smoke and mirrors is done. There's no clothes that the emperor is wearing at this particular point in time.
Republicans will argue that voters will start to see some of the economic benefits, they argue, from the big, beautiful bill this calendar year.
Well, if they're relying on that to save their failing majority, best of luck. It ain't going to work.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Over the weekend, we saw congressional appropriators release another slate of bills that did not include DHS funding. Is it your understanding that there will need to be a continuing resolution for DHS, or is it your posture and the posture of Democrats to try to put some more restrictions on ICE as a condition for funding for the agency, given the situation in Minneapolis?
Kristi Noem, the Department of Homeland Security, and ICE, they're totally out of control. And the American people want these extremists to be reined in. And what's in front of us right now is a spending bill that will go either one of two ways. Either Republicans will continue their my way or the highway approach as it relates to the Homeland Security bill, and if that happens, then it's going to be on them to figure out a path forward. Alternatively, particularly in the face of the tragedy, Renee Nicole Good should be alive today. There was no justification for that killing. That ICE agent and Kristi Noem, they've shown depraved indifference toward human life. That's what we saw. That's what the American people saw. And so clearly there's some common sense measures that need to be put in place so that ICE can conduct itself in a manner that is at least consistent with every other law enforcement agency in the United States of America at the state, local, and federal level. That's not too much to ask. Conduct yourself like every other law enforcement agency in the country. Instead, they're running around out of control with masks, no body cameras, no accountability, no warrants, arresting and in some cases deporting American citizens. And that's why the American people don't have a favorable view on the manner in which Donald Trump and his reckless administration are conducting immigration policy in the country right now.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. You mentioned in your remarks that because Democrats never wavered on their position on health care, that led to you all being able to get the ACA discharge petition over the finish line. There are multiple positions on DHS right now. Some of your members are saying they want to abolish ICE. Some are saying they want Kristi Noem impeached. Some are saying use the DHS approach bill to withhold funding. Some are saying that Republicans need to use their oversight authority and hold Kristi, Noem accountable in front of the American people, have her come before Homeland Security and Judiciary to testify. Given the fact that in 2025, so much of your success was due to the message discipline that you showed on affordability and healthcare. Are you concerned that a year or two into 2026, all of these various positions on DHS and immigration enforcement could muddle some of the message that you're trying to put forward as we head into the midterms?
Kristi Noem should stop hiding behind her MAGA wardrobe and actually come before the Congress and face the American people through their elected representatives. If she thinks her position is defensible, then show up, as opposed to stopping by for a drive-by and then scurrying out of the hearing with some fake excuse because you can't stand the heat. And that was before the killing of Renee Nicole Good. So it is clear that Kristi Noem should show up and be held accountable before the elected representatives in the House of Representatives, whether that's the Homeland Security Committee, first and foremost, Judiciary, or Oversight. But House Democrats are going to have a family conversation throughout the week in the caucus meeting and in the whip meeting about the path forward related to these most recent developments. We are unified behind the fact that under the leadership of Pramila Jayapal, there's going to be a hearing that House Democrats will hold this Friday in Minneapolis as part of the effort to hold the Department of Homeland Security accountable for its out-of-control behavior. Now, it's important to understand that a lot of the funding for ICE that is currently being unleashed on the American people, American citizens. Renee Nicole Good was a 37-year-old mom and American citizen who was cut down by ICE in plain view for all of the American people in the world to see. It's important to understand that a lot of the funding that's being unleashed on the American people in such extreme ways right now was provided not through the traditional appropriations process, but a connection with the one big ugly bill that every single Democrat and every single House, Senate Democrat opposed, every single one of us. And that Donald Trump and Republicans jammed down the throats of the American people. And so the funding dynamic that we have to navigate as it relates to ICE's out-of-control behavior is different in nature than what may have otherwise been the case, because a lot of the funding that ICE is currently utilizing comes from their one big ugly bill, and that's something that we'll collectively, be working on as our discussions continue. Yep.
Thank you. I wanted to ask you about the stock ban legislation that Republicans have introduced today or will introduce today. I saw the Magaziner statement saying that it doesn't go far enough, that Democrats feel it falls short, but I was curious, when it comes to the floor, as is expected in maybe a few weeks, do you expect that Democrats uniformly will vote against this bill? Well,
we haven't had a caucus meeting to discuss this issue. We look forward to hearing from Seth Magaziner, of course, Joe Morelli, Pramila Jayapal, Representative Ocasio-Cortez. They've all been leaders on this issue. Of course, 3 of them put out a strong statement of concern, or in some cases opposition, as it relates to this watered-down version of a bill that Mike Johnson and House Republicans are desperately trying to put forward. We need real anti-corruption measures to deal with challenges that we have in the Congress, in the Supreme Court, and certainly as it relates to this administration. The most corrupt administration in American history. The Trump cartel is running the largest pay-to-play scheme in the country's history. And there is going to be real accountability. It's coming your way. It's coming. They cannot escape it, no matter what games they try to play over the next couple of months. Real accountability delivered by the American people is coming toward MAGA extremism. Now, as it relates to this particular bill, we'll have to have a discussion about it. Let's see what occurs in the committee markup. That's the first step before anything gets to the floor. Republicans are having big problems on the floor of the House of Representatives. There's no guarantee that this bill has enough support on the Republican side, let alone on the Democratic side, to make it to the floor or even pass.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. A couple of House Democrats within the caucus have raised possibly impeaching Trump, especially after Venezuela. There's a couple of others, obviously, who have also said, in terms of cabinet officials like Kristi Noem, are these conversations that you are entertaining at all? And if not, how are you tamping them down to make sure that the caucus is united going into the midterms?
Well, we haven't had a caucus-wide conversation on that issue. Clearly, we're going to have to explore what accountability looks like as it relates to an out-of-control administration that continues to break the law, violate norms, and jam reckless right-wing extremism down the throats of the American people. That's a conversation that we're not going to run away from. We'll run toward it at the appropriate time. But what unites House Democrats at this moment continues to be a focus on three issues. Making clear to the American people you deserve better, driving down the high cost of living, because there is an affordability crisis in this country, despite what Donald Trump has to say. It's not a hoax. It's very real. We have to fix our broken health care system, and we can begin by extending the Affordable Care Act tax credits, as House Democrats were able to successfully do on our side of the Capitol, and now it falls on John Thune and Senate Republicans to do the right thing. And we have to clean up corruption in this town, across the board. And that will involve accountability for lawbreakers who are going to have to be reined in a variety of different ways. Listen, the House right now is nothing more than a reckless rubber stamp under Republican leadership for Donald Trump's extreme policies, and the American people know it. It's one of the reasons why Republicans are being routed all across the country politically. That started to happen last January. It took a while for people to catch up to that narrative. Now it's undeniable. Democrats are pushing back against Republican extremism, and that work continues. It's not going to let up. Donald Trump wants to wear America down so he can tear America down. That's the whole philosophy of MAGA Republican extremism. The problem, the miscalculation, was that the American people haven't stepped back, we're fighting back. And it's going to take different forms. But House Democrats, as we just saw on the floor last week, as we saw with the Epstein petition, as we saw in support of the effort to repeal Donald Trump's executive order that stripped away collective bargaining rights for more than 1 million hardworking federal employees, Democrats remain united, and we're getting stuff done for the American people. Expect that to continue in 2026.
Thank you, Mr. Leader. Congresswoman Ilhan Omar has criticized federal agents for wasting taxpayer dollars in Minnesota, even as her state faces one of the largest federal fraud investigations involving taxpayer dollars. How do you reconcile opposing federal enforcement while this massive fraud probe is underway to try to protect those very taxpayers?
It's not clear to me that one thing has to do with the other. There's an ongoing investigation at the state, local, and federal level as it relates to the allegations of fraud that have been presented. But at the same period of time, there's got to be accountability. The American people are demanding accountability, right? And Congress, we have a role to serve as a check and balance on an out-of-control executive branch. And of course, as John Adams once said, this Congress, right, at its best, the House should be an exact replica of the American people, in our view, reflect the hopes, the dreams, the aspirations, the fears, the concerns, the anxieties, the aspirations, or as the framers said, the passions of the American people. And the American people want us to do a variety of different things, like drive down the high cost of living, fix our broken healthcare system, clean up corruption, prevent Donald Trump from engaging in failed, endless foreign wars, protect the Federal Reserve from outrageous weaponization of the Department of Justice, and of course, deal with ICE's behavior, which is objectively out of control. They are killing American citizens with dollars provided by ICE by Republicans on a partisan basis. And that's why I supported the letter that was most recently sent by Congresswoman Ilhan Omar.
So, I mean, to kind of hone in on this a little bit. So, if not impeachment, if not a funding fight, what other options in the minority do you realistically have to go after ICE, to try to protect the Fed, et cetera?
We haven't ruled anything in, and we haven't ruled anything out. Everything is on the table from the standpoint of complete and total accountability. We just haven't had the discussion as a caucus as it relates to what is the best path forward. But obviously, removal requires a majority in the House and 2/3 of the Senate. Now, I'm no mathematician, but that means removal, if that is the ultimate objective, requires, I believe, 19 Senate Republicans to support removal. 19 Senate Republicans to support removal, regardless of what happens in the House of Representatives. So we're going to have a conversation about the best path forward. What is clear is that Kristi Noem is completely and totally unqualified. She should have never been confirmed by Senate Republicans. It's disgraceful that she's there. She should be run out of town as soon as possible. Figuring out the best way to accomplish that objective is going to take a conversation and strategic engagement, as we've done on every other issue, particularly in areas where we continue to win on behalf of the American people.